protecting Main Street from Wall Street. It's time for Money Unleashed with Eric Johnson and Kyle Allyn.
You have to have a plan where you know if the market's going to go up, what happens next. And you also have to have a plan where if it doesn't go the way you think, you know what you're going to do.
It's time to put you back in control of your money.
I'm not trying to predict the weather, which is kind of what we're talking about, right? It's predicting the stock market. I'm trying to build a better boat.
This is Money Unleashed with Eric Johnson and Kyle Allyn.
Welcome to the Money Unleashed podcast with Eric Johnson and Kyle Allyn. We are the vice presidents of Hoffman Financial Group. We've got new episodes for you on Monday and Friday. Be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And catch us on Money Unleashed every Saturday on 95.5 WSB from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Kyle, what we're going to talk about now is how to thrive in retirement and not just survive it. U.S. News and World Report shared a list of 5 essential steps that you can take today in order to set yourself up for a retirement that you want down in the future. So the first one is you have to know what you're spending now. I would argue this is probably one of the biggest questions I get people on when I say, hey, how much are you spending on a monthly basis? If I were to throw a percentage at it, I'd probably say it's a solid 65%. Like, I have no idea.
Yeah, you know
what about you?
It's so funny. I've changed the way I do this. So for many years, I did the same thing. And I don't know how long I've been doing this, but I don't ask that question anymore. So one of the things I sit down with people and I say, okay, the numbers tell us that average spending in Atlanta is about $5,000 a month on bills. So we're talking your phone, your power, your water, your TV, your internet, your radio, all these things that you're paying for, and your mortgage. And the largest piece of that spend is going to be your mortgage. So we're saying $2,500 for the mortgage. So my first question is, do you have a mortgage, right? And so a lot of people say, no, I don't have a mortgage. Okay, well, that makes the bills go from $5,000 to say $2,500. So then we say, all right, the other side of this equation would be fun. National average on fun is $2,000 a month. So when you dive into fun, what is it you like to do? And some people say, well, I like to travel. And I say, okay, are you going by yourself?
Right.
Or are you taking people? Well, I go by myself. Okay, well, that might be $3,000 to $5,000, whereas if you're going to take people, that may be $10,000 to $20,000. And then I say, okay, how many trips are you taking? Because a lot of people come back and say, well, I'll only take one, versus a lot of people come back and say, I'll take 3 to 4.
Right.
So it's interesting. I've started trying to help people this because you're right. I don't think most people really understand what they might spend in retirement. And I think one of the greatest benefits we provide, even though I'm 40 years old and I'm talking to somebody who's 70, 65, who's 60, I've seen retirement. I've seen what happens. One of the interesting things that I tell people often is when you get into retirement, you're going to spend less money than you think. So for a lot of people, let's say you walk in, you got $5 million in your account, and you're hearing me talk about bills that are $5,000 a month and fund that's $2,000 to $5,000 a month.
That's going to be different for you.
Well, maybe.
Maybe.
I mean, it's so unique, right? I think it's a ballast point for somebody to come back and then say, yeah, that's not me at all. Or, yeah, that sounds like me. Because I think what they struggle with is they can't see themselves retired. They can't see themselves in that moment. And what I'm able to say is, okay, I've already seen you there. I've seen you 100 times this year alone, and I've been doing this for 15 years. So here's what you do look like. You do look like X, most likely. And then they come back and say, no, I'm the exception to the rule. I'm the anomaly. And sometimes people say that. They'll come back. I had a guy the other day. He just said, look, I drive a Porsche Macan. I have an old school Porsche and a new school Porsche. And if I have to give up driving these 3 cars when I'm in retirement, I don't want to retire.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, well, let's stop for a second. Do you have a mortgage? He goes, no. I go, okay. Is there a cost on the cars? He goes, well, not on the old ones. I go, okay. So then the Macan is where the cost is. He goes, yeah, it's about $1,500 a month I pay in a car bill. I'm like, okay. But you just told me that you don't have the $2,500 a month mortgage.
Right.
So what we've just said is this thing that should be a bill is in your fund bucket. So I always draw these 2 buckets on the board, and I go, let's talk fund bucket, let's talk bill bucket. Because if the bill bucket is here and it costs $6,000 and the fund bucket's over here and it gets to be a variable number, and then we come back and say, okay, we've got $10,000 to $11,000 a month that we can play with, and then the client goes, wow, I've got $4,000 to $5,000. I got $50,000 to $60,000 every year that I can do whatever I want with.
Yeah.
I go, yeah. And then the other side of it is I show them the end. So with a lot of clients, and you and I talk about this a lot, we're able to build an end stream that shows the full measure of what's going to happen in their lives. So we're able to come back and say, look, today you have $2 million in the accounts. But because you're only taking $20,000 out each year, you're going to grow these accounts. You're not going to deplete them. So in the future, you're going to have and this is not exact, but let's say a client comes in and we say, look, you're going to have $4.5 million at 90 years old. Well, with that perspective, that client gets to say, well, maybe I want to spend a little more today.
Yeah, but the reason why you need to know what you're spending now, to your point, is because you have to treat yourself like a business, right? Like you have to understand the inflows and you have to understand the outflows so you can tell if your business is growing or dying, and nothing different with people's portfolios and their lifestyles. So that's why that's number one. All right, let's hop into number two. So second on the list is consider those future expenses. So what are we talking about for future expenses? Well, medical is one, right? The amount of vacations you want to take is number two. What about the kids? Like, do we want to help out the kids? Do we want to spoil grandchildren? Like understanding expenses that might be cropping up in retirement versus when you're not in retirement. We talked about what you're spending. Now we're talking about the expenses and proactively looking at what's coming next.
And from where? Like I had a conversation with a client yesterday. So they've just fully retired in 2026. Last year was a partial retirement, so they were kind of wrapping things up. And so one of the things they were looking at is last year, because of the income that they had, we had them pulling their money from their non-qualified accounts because they wanted to sit in the capital gains bucket from a tax perspective. But now that they're done with work and they're not reporting any earned income, we're pulling from the IRA.
Yeah.
Right? So there's this tax overlay that you've got to understand. On top of that, for this client, we were telling them to defer their Social Security because they live in a world where they need to do some tax work. They have 3 children. All 3 of the children work in the medical field. All 3 of the children are already making $400,000. So they live in a world where if they pass away and they give their money to the children, they've got about $4 million.
Yeah.
Okay, now the kids are getting taxed at 36 to 40% on every dollar, even at today's rates. So they live in this world of high taxes. So we've got to come back and do some tax treatment to make sure we pull from the right account at the right time. And I want to be very clear because this is something I just don't think people are hearing me enough on. Every day that you waste, if you're 60 years old, every day that you waste between when you retire and 73, you can never get this back.
Right.
And the choices that you make in this frame forever impact you, your family, your legacy. And so if you're listening and you haven't really understood your distribution patterns, your Roth conversions, your channels of income structure, and you're in your 60s, every single day you waste, you cannot get it back. And it is so important that you hear me because this simple little coffee and conversation for a lot of people is not that big of a deal. We just need to move some stocks around. We need to move some bonds around. It's an allocation discussion. But if you're in your 60s and you can hear my voice and you haven't answered these questions, it is imperative that you do so.
It falls back into number two, right? Like understanding what you have going on here. And it's funny, I scratched the surface on number 3 when I mentioned healthcare costs because that's actually number 3. And it's probably everyone's biggest fear other than I don't want to run out of money is how am I going to pay for the healthcare on the back end of this thing? And there's a lot of different ways that you can do this. But, usually everyone's waiting to 65, right? So that's when the cavalry comes with Medicare. But you might have some over-the-table expenses that you're going to have to take care on top of it as well, too.
Now, I see in the numbers, does it say $172,000 out of pocket? Is that for the entire?
I think that's per person throughout the rest of their life. Like, how are we going to spend this $172,000 on my health care until, God taps me on the shoulder and I go visit everybody I love up in heaven.
And so that basically says, hey, do you have $200,000 to $300,000 on the sidelines?
Right. Waiting for you in order to do this.
Exactly.
That's another thing you have to plan for. Number 4, let's touch on that for just a second. It's about the lifestyle that you want, right? So we constantly talk about planning on this show. We're planners. That's what we're going to do. But you want to make sure that you are setting yourself up. And here's a great example. I see people every single day. And when I ask them what they want to do, the answer is always travel. Why is that? Because everybody is starting to understand the paradox of money. While you're growing and accumulating your life, raising kids, maybe you're not raising kids, doing all the things, you are literally taking care of all the things that you want along the way as you go. So oftentimes when people get to retirement, like, well, I don't need any more watches, and I don't need another Porsche, and I don't need another house. Like, I've got all the things. Then what's all this money for? Travel, right? So that's great. Everyone likes to travel, but are you going to be traveling every single week of the year, Kyle? Probably not.
Or is travel even your thing? I think
sometimes it is. Sometimes it's not.
I think what we're looking for is experience.
Yeah. And so what I talked about people is like, yes, travel's great. Let's talk about where you want to go, how many trips you want to take, who you want to take, all that fun stuff. It's the time in between the travel that really gets people, right? Because even if you took a vacation every single month for a week, you still have 3 weeks in between. What are you going to do with yourself? Like, you don't want to be eating bread on the couch watching the news all day. You're not going to be going on very many vacations. So it's figuring out what the lifestyle is going to be outside of the travel, I would argue, is the big one for number 4.
Well, and I can tell you what you don't want to be doing. You don't want to be adjusting your spending based on the stock market, which is this volatile place.
It's funny. You mentioned that. I had a gentleman who I sat down with just the other day, in one of the beginning meetings of the year. And he goes, according to my calculations, if I make 8% a year for the rest of my life, I can still leave my kids plenty of money and I have enough to do. I was like, yeah, you're right. Theoretically, you're right. I was like, well, what happens in the down years?
Yeah.
He goes, well, this contra fund says it's up 13% every year for the past 15 years. I'm like, well, how'd it do in 2022? Crickets. And I go, okay. So yes, theoretically you are correct, right? Like, you are correct. However, you have to plan for those years where it goes down. And yes, you do not want to be at the mercy of the markets. You don't want a green day to be a good day and a red day to be a bad day in the stock market. It's not always going to be linear.
And didn't we see an article that literally said that? They were like, adjust your spending based on them. I'm like, whoa.
Yeah, no. Well, we talked about that last year. We had a show about that. We were like, we categorically disagree with this. That's absolutely ridiculous. But you have to make sure that you take these steps. And then the final step you want to talk about is actually making sure your legacy plan is organized, right? Because 10 out of 10 of us are going to lose to Father Time, just how it works. I mean, my father passed away last year, and this man was so meticulous in everything he possibly did. There were still little things that he messed up on, right? Like he didn't have his checking and savings account inside the trust, and those got frozen. Those got to go through probate. Meanwhile, my dad has 3 other trusts that are out there. He just never put those into any of them. So this is so important. And I just had this conversation with a client because one of the things I've done, as we've matured as a firm, one of the things I've started doing is opening myself up and saying to clients, okay, how are your kids doing? And so I think when we first started, a lot of our clients are coming in, they're pre-retirees or they're just retired, so they're somewhere between 58 and say 65. It's been 15 years, so a lot of those clients are coming in, they're saying, my son is 42, my son is 38, my daughter is 45, my daughter's 50. And so one of the things we've done is we've opened the door and we've said, okay, if you're a client, if we're working with you, we've already established that relationship, we'd love to help them. And so we started bringing those clients in and sitting them down with the kids. And sometimes they don't want to tell the kids because the kids are in their early 30s, but then other times the kids are in their 40s. And so what I'm finding is everybody's in the room and the kids are looking at mom and dad going, why don't you spend more money? And I can see the look on the clients when they're like, well, I thought I was saving it for you. And the kids are like, no, we're making money, we're growing, we got great things going on. And then I'm able to say to both of them, okay, how do we maximize this amazing moment for everybody? Because we're looking at the first generation ever with the baby boomers that are going to have a major, major, major legacy giveaway. $84 trillion is going to someone else's hands, whether it's Generation X or the millennials. And so by sitting down, building the legacy plan, building the trust, whatever needs to be done and getting organized, you're putting yourself in a position to not just grow your money, but build multi-generational wealth. Agreed. And the bottom line is this: it's a brand new year. It's a great time to get organized. Let's get your financial house in order. We are here to help you with all these things at Hoffman Financial Group. If any of these 5 things you have left out in the dust, let's go take care of it. Let's put a plan together for you. We do this at no cost and no obligation for you. Let's go ahead and get a portfolio x-ray started for you today. Give us a call, 404-640-5511. That's 404-640-5511, or you can find us online at unleashyourmoney.com.
Eric Johnson and Kyle Allyn are investment advisor representatives of Brookstone Wealth Advisors, LLC, a registered investment advisor and affiliate of Brookstone Capital Management, LLC. BWA and Hoffman Financial Group are affiliated under common ownership. Registered investment advisors and investment advisor representatives act as fiduciaries for all of our investment management clients. We have an obligation to act in the best interest of our clients and to make full disclosures of any conflicts of interest. Please refer to our firm brochure, the ADV2A, page 4, for additional information. The Hoffman Financial Group and WSB are not affiliated. Exposure to ideas and financial vehicles discussed should not be considered investment advice or recommendation to buy or sell any financial vehicle. This information should not be considered tax or legal advice. Individuals should consult with a professional specializing in the field of tax, legal, accounting, or investments regarding the applicability of this information for their situation. Any client experiences discussed during the show are unique to that client. They are not meant to imply or suggest you will experience the same results. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. Investments will fluctuate and when redeemed may be worth more or less than when originally invested. Any comments regarding safe and secure products and guaranteed income streams refer only to fixed insurance products. They do not refer in any way to securities or investment advisory products. Fixed insurance and annuity product guarantees are subject to the claims paying ability of of the issuing company and are not offered by Brookstone. Index or fixed annuities are not designed for short-term investments and may be subject to caps, restrictions, fees, and surrender charges as described in the annuity contract. Please refer to our firm brochure, the ADV2A Item 4, for additional information. Hoffman Financial Group is not affiliated with or endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any other government agency. Insurance licensed in Georgia, number 163546.